time is it? What time is it? What time is it?
Welcome to Talking About Sports here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. We're back home, and we like it. Joined as always by our all-star panel. John Tobias, our senior statistician from CBS Sports and ESPN, two-time Emmy Award winner Reggie Walker via Penn State, where they only count tickets distributed, not actual people in the stands at Penn State.
Easy.
And a former Carolina Panther, and glad to be here. Mike Pacheco, by the way, for those who care, is on assignment, although no one has told me what the assignment is. He may be back in Nantucket, Cape Cod, Hilton Head, or the subcontinent for all I know. But we're talking Carolina Panther football. The guys are at training camp. We were there, therefore you're going to be there. Kevin Tolbert has been down at training camp daily. He's got a lot of great video.
Executive producer extraordinaire.
Executive producer for sure. And we've also been at the fights with Christy Martin. Had a great fight here in town. We're going to get to that later in the show. But, guys, what do you think about, Carolina Panthers are back in town. And I'll start with you, Reggie. You're a former player. We got a guy, Colin Cowherd, who's on Fox Sports. He hosts a daily radio show. He's on TV every day. Very well-known sports media figure. He was very critical about Cam Newton and his style of play. What do you take of that, and what kind of potential motivation could that be to a guy like Cam Newton in training camp?
Well, first thing I'll say is I hope Cam doesn't need anything like this to add to the level of motivation. That's number one.
Well, Reggie, he was at ESPN, I believe, at the same time you were at ESPN. He was doing ESPN radio at the time. So did you have any interactions personally with him or staff?
Yeah, I ran across Colin a few times, and let me say this. One of the things that
probably some little jabroni that runs his mouth. What do you think about
a couple big jabronis that had juice over there. But I tell you, the one thing that I was sort of unaware of in the earlier years, as you get older, you start to read into things and pay better attention. He's very astute. Colin Cowherd is a very astute person. He's very learned. He understands how a lot of things work, and he can say some thought-provoking things. Personally, I thought this particular...
He's good at what he does.
He's good at what he does.
He wouldn't have gotten to the places he's gotten without being good at what he does.
But these comments were clickbait to me. They were trying to get a rise. They were trying to get attention. To me, this is kind of soft and weak on his part. I just think to try to say a guy is purposely running around because he's not smart, I think is inaccurate, because we've seen Cam do a lot of things from the pocket and be successful. The offensive line was bad last year, and a lot of times when you struggle.
Do we have any stats that can look into what Cam Newton has done? This, by the way, breaking news, he's a former MVP, former Heisman Trophy winner.
How about that?
Number one pick in the draft. He's a large man. I've seen him in the locker room many times. He's a friendly person. I don't know any of these guys. I see him, hey, how you doing? But he was nice to me.
Right.
Always been cordial and very professional.
Absolutely.
JT, what do you see, besides the fact that he had a lot of lookout blocks last year and he was running for his life due to poor offensive line play last year?
Well, I think the thing about it is when it comes to Cam Newton, I think that what Colin said, I think his remarks were a little too inflammatory, in my opinion. Yeah. However, there are other people that feel the same way that Colin does. And to a certain extent, the numbers back it up. And this is what I mean. He was an MVP 2 years ago, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, running rate choice for MVP. I'm trying to think of a person that has had more of a precipitous drop from being an MVP to the second year. In the last 7 or 8 years, we've had Aaron Rodgers MVP, no drop, no precipitous drop, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Adrian Peterson. That's pretty much it. And when I say a precipitous drop,
but Cam was injured though. He did have to. He played half the year with an injured shoulder, and he had a horrible offensive line in front of him.
I like Cam, but I have to be honest as well in terms if you look at the numbers. He had 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions 2 years ago. Last year, his completion rating 52%, his lowest ever.
Yeah,
his lowest ever in all the years that he played. His quarterback rating 75.8, also the lowest. 19 touchdowns, second lowest, 14 interceptions. So, in other words, like I said, I think that Colin's remarks were a little too inflammatory, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that do feel that Cam Newton has not been the same ever since that loss to Denver.
Well, Reggie, what about the fact that Ken Dorsey's his quarterback's coach, Mike Shula is the offensive coordinator, knowing that the personnel situation was fluid with injuries on the offensive line, Michael Orr has got a concussion, he's since been released. They've had injuries on the offensive line. There was personnel going down. I don't think that the play calling and the scheme reflected the fact that who he was dealing with in terms of his offensive line, and they didn't adapt the scheme to fit Cam's skill set at that time, and maybe they asked too much of him to run too much, whereas run to get first downs, but try to stay healthy, and you can't help the team in the training room.
Well, and I think the biggest issue here to think about, what we got to figure out, what the Panthers I'm sure want to figure out is they want Cam to run when they want him to run, not when he has to run.
But does he?
And if they can minimize that,
but now is the comment he's lazy?
That's what I say.
And he wants to stay. He just wants to stay back.
inflammatory.
He just wants to hang back. Okay, it's not open. I'm just going to take a knee. I'll take a sack, or I'll just run out of bounds.
That's asinine on Colin Cowherd's part to say that anybody would do that consciously and try to run around. Now, I will say this. One of the things that Colin did say when he basically implied that Cam wasn't smart, and I'm not suggesting the same thing, but I don't think he was calling Cam an unintelligent individual. I think what he was saying was he was talking about the history of quarterbacks that ran and how long they lasted in the league. He was suggesting to Cam, hey, if you think that's going to work, you haven't looked at these guys. You haven't done your research. Now, with that being said, I still think the comment of him being lazy and doing it purposely was irresponsible at minimum on Cowherd's part.
JT, I think that's loaded language.
I agree.
Call him lazy and lacks intelligence to me, I think is borderline insensitive. And I'm just
that ain't borderline. It is insensitive.
Now but I look at Cam and I see a guy who, like I pointed out, won the Heisman, was the MVP, led his team to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When you give this man time, I think he's fairly accurate. He's got the strong arm. He can throw it as deep as anybody in the league. Now, if he has time and he has weaponry, and we're going to see, and JT, you've pointed it out in previous episodes about the different types of receivers he has coming up and the different type of offensive weaponry he's going to have this year. Maybe we're going to see a different type of a Cam Newton with improved offensive line play and improved weapons at his disposal.
You have the Khalil brothers. So, in other words, and Rich, you know just as well as anyone.
Like the Anderson brothers.
That a lot of times, like I said, Ole and Gene. And, of course, like how you said before, that a lot of times games are won,
championships are won in the trenches, baby.
Right, without question. So, of course, having Matt Khalil, Ryan's brother, would definitely help. And then, like you said, in terms of the offensive weapons, Christian McCaffrey, we've talked about him ad nauseum, Curtis Samuels as well. Like I said,
what do you think this team could, at the end of the year, JT, you're going to look at the stats. Where's Carolina going to be in total offense? Where's Cam Newton going to be in completion percentage, touchdowns thrown? Are we going to, what type of first downs are we going to score? Total plays. Is this team a potential offensive juggernaut?
I think that he will have, Cam Newton, talk about Cam Newton, I think that he will have a much better year than what he had last year. Because like I said, his last year was 52% completion, 70% quarterback rating. Like that's the lowest that he's had even during his rookie year. So you can only go but up, from that. However, I'm not sure if he's going to get back to his MVP form to where he threw 35 touchdowns and only had 10 picks. But I think that it can be close. I think that he's going to be motivated, and I think that he does have a lot of offensive weapons that can complement him.
But does he need to have the MVP type numbers to lead his team for anywhere between 9, 10, 12 wins and maybe a division champion, to be win the division? Does he need to have gaudy stats like that, or just do enough to win and keep the chains moving?
I don't think his, when we look at touchdowns and yards, I don't think it needs to be that gaudy. But I think where the numbers need to be gaudy in terms of, in a comparison to last year, is completion percentage. I think if Cam is somewhere around 59 to 62% completions, I think this team is. I still think this team's probably going to win about 10 games, maybe even 11. But I'll tell you right now, this entire division got better.
It's a tough division,
including the Panthers. Everybody got
dramatically.
Better. Tampa's improved dramatically.
The Falcons are
what they are. We know that.
Last year.
And oh, by the way, the Saints have finally figured out that defense is part of the game. So I think that's going to help them improve somewhat. I realize they got rid of Brandon Cooks. I get that.
They got Ted Ginn.
They've made
Junior,
and they've
Adrian Peterson.
They've shown a little bit of a focus of running the football.
New Orleans, the Superdome's a tough place to play on the road.
Superdome is tough, and if they have a decent defense in that place, they can be really, really special.
That's loud. It's a loud. It's
extremely loud. It's extremely loud. And look, I think as we segue here, I think one of the other things. Cam Newton, I always say this is always a dangerous thing. but Cam has seemed to shown a renewed sense of focus. He came into camp 15 pounds lighter than he was last year.
He's ripped.
That's
like
a message.
Rude.
That's a message.
Ravishing.
That's a message that he took the offseason seriously.
Right.
So that tells me, if nothing else, he's putting his best foot forward right now.
And that's why I agree.
But his shoulder better, and he's obviously not hanging out with his fish taco truck near the stadium.
And that's why I agree to. I think that he's going to have a much better year than last year. But I don't think that it would be his MVP numbers. But at the same time, I don't think with the additional of offensive weapons, I don't think that he has to have those gaudy numbers.
When do we see a Cam Newton that's going to come out and say I'm 100%? I mean, he's limited in his throws. The Fan Fest is coming up. We've got first exhibition game, which is, kind of not really – starters generally don't play. Second exhibition, guys are kind of getting feel for it. The third game is when everyone says, okay, this is a dress rehearsal. We're going to go at least till half. Or they just pretty much going to maybe keep him out until the week one.
I think one of the preseason games he does have to play some extended time, not necessarily to see, not necessarily to prove anything, but more than anything to show that he can make a high volume of throws in a game and how his body reacts, how his shoulder reacts the next 2 or 3 days after that to see if he's really ready to go.
We'll hear about progress along the way. Kevin Tolbert down at training camp. He was at all the media availabilities. He talked to Coach Ron Rivera, and Coach Rivera talks about the team's progress so far.
There's a lot more depth. It was something that we had, we had purposely gone out and done. I know in talking with Dave this past spring was one of the things that we did consciously in terms of making sure we have the kind of depth that we can have competing right now. And again, I feel real comfortable that we'll have some really good guys in some good spots. We missed some opportunities to make some plays. We dropped some balls. We missed some throws that we should have made. And on both sides, on offense and defense, we dropped some balls. When you're presented with the opportunity to make a play, you have to, because that's what it's all about. And you can't win football games without making plays. Mario's looked great. He really has. I think Mario's having a fabulous camp. In fact, Mario's had a great spring. Great OTAs and mini camp, and he picked up right where he left off. So it's been exciting to watch him. It really has. I'm real pleased with his growth and development. And Kurt's done a really nice job of taking some leadership roles. And I just listening to him and the things that he's saying, to the guys about, hey, you've got to hear, you've got to listen, you got to pay attention, you got to open up your ear. I mean, just getting on young guys about how to do things and how to do things the right way.
Now, offensively, lots of challenges remain for the Panthers. Defensively, I don't think that is the problem. But, Reg, where do you think Carolina? I asked JT about what he foresees for the long-term offensively for Carolina. Where do you see at the end of the year we're going to look back and say, wow, this is what they did on offense?
You know what? I think people are going to be surprised at how well they run the football this year. And I think, and the main reason why I say that is because I think it's going to be a combination of people. I think you're going to see McCaffrey get some carries. I think Stu obviously is going to get the mother load of carries. But I think this team is going to be better running the football because I think they got an opportunity to run it out of some more spread out sets to create a few more running lanes. And I think the offensive line has improved. As we keep talking about more and more weapons, everybody often talks about McCaffrey as a receiver out of the backfield. We talk about Samuel. We talk about Funchess and Olsen and all these guys, Benjamin as well. But I think we forget that this team and this offense, when it's been at its best, it's been because they run the football well.
I think the thing about it is that with Christian McCaffrey, I think that the Panthers have someone that they have never had before from an offensive standpoint, someone who can run the ball, someone that they can move at the slot position and who can catch the ball out the backfield and still be extremely effective. I guess the thing about it is, though, Reg, what I look at is when it comes to Funchess, do you think that he can still be and elevate his game as opposed to how it was last year and the year before? Do you expect better results?
I think I do. And I think the main reason why I expect better results is because they have more players. That if you don't create better results, you're going to create more pine time for yourself. And I think anytime you have a competitive group, when you have depth of competition where a coach can play some different guys, if guys aren't effective, guys generally play better.
One thing I want to touch on before I forget about McCaffrey, Joel Klatt, who's someone that I respect a lot, watches a lot of film, he said that Christian McCaffrey, without question, was the most talented offensive skilled player in the draft. He's not the only one that has said that. I know other people may say Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, but it's because of the plethora of things that he can do, like
Correct.
I said, in the backfield, in the slot. And like I said, that's something from base back all the way back to 95. I don't think that the Panthers have ever had this type of weapon before.
Well, and to that point, I mean, if you listen to what some of the Panthers themselves have even said, I think a guy like Luke Kuechly the other day said something to the effect of, he's a guy that can do everything you need him to do. He can run a 7 route.
We
he
have
can run
Luke
a flare
Kuechly.
route.
We have Luke Kuechly on tape, and we'll get to that and much more Panther talk. We've got defense to talk about. Steph Curry's trying to play some pro golf. I wish I could, but we've seen that I can't. At least not yet. I'm still injured, so need some help. And has anyone seen Allen Iverson? Earth to AI. Where are you, AI? I'm a home guy from Virginia.
Bubba Chuck.
And I'm looking for you. So we'll be back with more Talking About Sports right here on ADSN. Welcome back to Talking About Sports. Kevin Casey, John Tobias, and Reggie Walker. You just heard from Luke Kuechly talking about Christian McCaffrey and how fast this guy is, and he's legit. And I think some people are coming to the conclusion that even the Carolina Panthers don't realize what they have. And, you know, I think it remains to be seen. He hasn't played a down in the regular season, but Christian McCaffrey himself talked about his own quickness and what his maybe some rookie expectations are.
Oh, it's been great. You know, coming out here, you know, anytime you get a chance to step on the field, it's a wonderful opportunity and a blessing. So, you know, the fact that I get to do it for a wonderful organization just, you know, it means a lot. But it's been great. Meetings have been awesome. You know, Coach Skip helped me out a lot, as well as the veteran backs too. So, you know, I'm still learning, but it's definitely coming along, and I'm excited. I think it just came naturally. You know, I think a lot of it had to do with just playing in the backyard with my brothers all the time, and you know, we had a little grass patch, so there wasn't a whole lot of space to work with. So you had to find different ways to make my older brother miss. So, you know, just I think growing up playing multiple sports too, playing basketball, you know, a lot of that quickness and setting people up and being able to jab one way, go the other way, explode off that first step. That's kind of where I did a lot of that stuff too.
He's quick. He's got shake. He's fast. He got me today on one run, but luckily Thomas was right next to me. But he's fast. He's quick. The way he runs, you can tell that he's done it a few times. He's very precise with his movements. He's in and out of breaks quick. He does a good job, and I think he's gonna be somebody that can help us out.
Yesterday when I got back downstairs, there he was watching tape on his own, and then I cut across the locker room again. There he was in the training room getting a little extra treatment. So, you know, you see the young man is really knows how to be a pro already, and he's just going to get progressively better at it.
We're going to hear from the guys on defense like Luke Kuechly and Bradbury are one of our top DBs. You know, guys like that, they're saying that, and Jonathan Stewart came out this week and said no one in the league can cover this guy one-on-one coming out of the backfield. That's kind of a bold thing to say, but maybe Jay Stu has a few things that he's seeing in practice that maybe other guys don't.
Well, there's always that concept that, you know, guys that are in the trenches with you every day in the same meeting room, yada, 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 they see more and they know a little bit more about you than most other players do. So I'm going to lean in with him on that and give him a lot of credence with that comment. Now, with that being said, you also don't know what all these linebackers out here in the league are capable of, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be an adjustment period, as there always is, for rookie players in the NFL.
I don't know about any linebackers going to cover this guy. He's a small guy. He's shifty. He's quick. You may have to bring in corners or like slot guys to match up with this guy.
Well, and that's precisely why you draft a guy like this. His versatility creates a lot of matchup problems in theory for opposing defenses. Now, the question is, with all of this expectation, will he be able to meet it? And also, we're harping so much on him. What about what we expect from a guy like Samuel and Olsen and all the other weapons?
Right, and, you know, I'm glad that you brought that up because, you know, he has been showered all these type of accolades, and I think that the sky's the limit for Christian McCaffrey. But the one thing that concerns about me, Reg and Kev, is that his durability. You know, Jonathan Stewart, great guy, great player, but he's not known to play like a full 16-game schedule. So the thing about it is that could Christian McCaffrey be that lead running back to where he could carry the ball like 20 times if there's a situation to where Jonathan Stewart is out? And if he can't, the guys next man up,
Fozzie Whitaker
Cameron Artis-Payne. Can those guys be, quote unquote, that next
There's a
man
guy
up to
who
where they can fill the spot?
There's a guy who's wrestling a lot now. Doesn't have a job. It's produced in the league for a couple of teams. He used to play for Carolina.
Who's that?
He's now taking them off their list of teams I'll never play for, according to him. D'Angelo Williams says he's available if there's an injury, or maybe someone signs him beforehand, or maybe D'Angelo Williams, or it could be your committee with Cameron Artis-Payne, Fozzie Whitaker, and Samuels, and McCaffrey.
Well, that's the thing. It's particularly Whitaker and Cameron Artis-Payne are going to have to be effective players. They're going to have to come in and spell Stu, because I think I don't project McCaffrey to ever be a 250 to 300 carries in a season type of guy.
Fozzie Whitaker's underrated. Every time he's been asked to produce, he
does.
He's a good out of the backfield guy. He's a good third down, change of pace guy. And I think if you spread it around, you give him like maybe 10 or 12 carries. You bring in McCaffrey for maybe 7 or 8 carries, maybe Silva, Samuels, maybe Artis-Payne. There might be, if you can get maybe 20 carries out of that group of guys without a Jonathan Stewart, potentially and hypothetically, if he's maybe not a full go, I think there's a good stable of running backs without even picking up anybody on the street.
The thing about it is, Red, is that you make a good point in terms of you don't envision McCaffrey being like a guy that will carry the ball 200 to 225 times. But the thing about it is that does he remind you of someone like Reggie Bush? I'm not talking about the USC Reggie Bush, but the New Orleans Saints Reggie Bush, to where there were times we got 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards in terms of rushing, but he was more effective as a receiver out of the backfield. Or you don't think that he is as big and durable as Reggie Bush?
No, that's a great point, because I think there is and I have to be careful how I say this, because people are going to think I'm comparing them. I'm not comparing them, but there is a similarity in terms of the level of skill set. I said when Reggie Bush came out of college, he's not a running back, he's a football player. Mm-hmm. I think Christian McCaffrey is not a running back, he's a football player. Reggie Bush turned himself into a running back, and what I mean by that is learning how to run between the tackles, learning how to get down, not take big hits, learning how to pass protect, all of those things he got better at and became a running back instead of a football player. And right now, when Reggie Bush came out of school, I made the comparison in terms of a skill set and a mindset of how you use a player. I called him a newer version of Eric Metcalf. I think Christian McCaffrey's on the same lines right now.
Okay.
But I think he can turn himself into a running back in the NFL. But let's get one thing clear. There was a stretch of time at Stanford, Christian McCaffrey did not have a touchdown rushing on the road, which also meant he wasn't playing in short yardage. And a lot of times, if you go back and watch the tape, he didn't play in a lot of short yardage and goal line situations for Stanford. That tells you something. Maybe he wasn't able to get that tough yard inside, that 1 yard down on the goal. I'm not suggesting that he's not able, but they know more than we do. So my point is, he's a football player. Let him be that until he becomes something else.
He didn't need a free house either, according to friends
point.
of the program. I hear they do that in a lot of places, Reggie. But,
Easy.
Let's talk to Luke Kuechly and James Bradbury talking about the speed of not just McCaffrey, but the team in general.
There's some fast guys out there. I don't know if obviously Christian's fast and Curtis is fast, and but there's some dudes that can roll. That are fast.
I know they got one dude that he ran track. I think he came from Buffalo. He's pretty fast. Bird's always fast. Austin Duke from Charlotte, he's fast. He's been making a lot of plays. Today they ran a lot of double moves, so it was getting us a little bit. But a lot of speed out there.
You watch tape and you're like, there's just dudes just flying. There's tons of them, and I think that's good for us. And speed creates space. It creates problems. It scares people. When you have a guy that can really, really run, you got to take him into account. And we've got a couple guys that are just fast.
Well, if you're faster than me, I consider you to be fast. So, Austin Duke, I think his name's TJ Graham. He's fast. Bird is fast. I think it's out of those three. I don't know which one it is yet, but it's out of those three.
And that helps everyone else out, and it's fun to see that they're on our team, but it's also kind of scary when you play against them every day that this dude they can fly, and that's good for us.
All right, just heard Luke Kuechly and James Bradbury. Those are fast guys. Luke Kuechly can run, I think, step for step. He's proven that with any tight end in the league. James Bradbury, one of the top young corners, we'll say.
Yeah.
I think second year he's going to have a lot to to show. He's got a good mentor in Captain Munnerlin in there. But team speed-wise, I think Carolina has drastically upgraded in the speed department.
I think so, too. And the thing about it is that a person that's known to be a burner, Ted Ginn, Ohio State guy, happened to be replaced by, oh, by the way, another Ohio State guy, Curtis Samuel. And people talk about McCaffrey, being fast. I think McCaffrey ran a 4.48 40 in the combine. Curtis Samuels ran a 4.31. I mean, this isn't John Ross territory, who's now with the Bengals, played with Washington. But, 4.31, I don't say anybody can be faster than that, Reg, on the team.
Listen, speed is the biggest nightmare for any opposing team, whether you have it on defense or offense. Because when you have speed, you can make up for a lot of mistakes. And if you talk to any coach at any level of football, if they have a team that can run, they're okay. They feel comfortable. Because you can do a lot of things with speed. Sometimes you can avoid technique. There's a lot of great players that we know in sports that get away with some things because they're a little bit faster and they can kind of fake it. I mean, Ray Lewis was a technique guy and understood the game, but there were other guys that are just pure speed, and they were great players. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the only thing that matters is the speed.
Well, who is the fastest guy on the roster? And it depends on who you ask. I think it's a guy from the Charlotte 49ers and Independence High School in Austin Duke. The question is, can he make the roster? I mean, you don't want to expose him to – you want to get him on the practice squad, but that means 31 other teams have a shot at getting this guy. Maybe they sweeten the pot to get him on their practice squad, or maybe they keep him on the active roster. Let's hear from Coach Ron Rivera. He talks about the team speed in Austin Duke.
I thought Austin's done a nice job. He's shown some vertical speed. He missed one he should have caught. He normally catches that ball, but he's going to make plays, and he's an exciting guy. I'm looking forward to seeing him in our first preseason game.
And we heard Luke Kuechly and Coach Rivera. We've heard from James Bradbury. That means we're there. It means you're there. Kevin Tolbert down at training camp in balmy Spartanburg, South Carolina. Now, defensively, I think Carolina, that's, we've talked about so much about the offense, but you got a front seven. You've got the highly paid K'Wan Short, Star Lutele in a contract year. You got defensive ends, Charles Johnson, who's been a big money player. Julius Peppers coming back to the franchise. You got Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly, Pro Bowlers, and a former Defensive Player of the Year in Kuechly. Shaq Thompson, a hybrid linebacker type DB like you were, Reggie. Maybe you invented it. Maybe you were a pioneer before your time.
No, I was a little smaller than that.
We weren't going to say you've been hanging out at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill, eating all the good food.
Hey, it's good food here. Good food.
I know, but defensively, our front seven has been, universally, lauded as being one of the best in the league. The DBs like James Bradbury. Now you add a veteran like Captain Munnerlin into the mix. Kirk Coleman's a Pro Bowler from a couple years ago, well paid. So maybe defensively, by and large, I've always been in the philosophy: if the other team doesn't score, you'll never lose.
Yeah. Well, listen, defense is going to win you championships, and I think this defense is going to be pretty good this year. What I like that they've consistently done with the defensive front is between Johnson and Addison and Pep and Starr and K1, you've got all these guys.
Addison's a great pass rusher.
He is. And what happens is
he got paid in the offseason.
You've got three legitimate guys on that defense at the defensive tackle rotation.
Former number one pick Vernon Butler, who was injured much of this year.
Exactly.
He could be the heir apparent. If Star Lotele doesn't produce, then you got a number one guy waiting in the wings.
Well, that's the other positivity of that is you got three guys to play those two positions. You got three guys to rush the passer. Sometimes you can move Pep because Pep's a bigger guy. On third down situations, you can move him inside and get another pass rusher on the field. So when you look at the combinations they can roll out there on the defensive front and their ability to rest guys on the defensive front, you've got all the makings of a pass rush that can be effective for 4 quarters every single week.
Reg, you're high on this guy from Texas A&M. What is he going to bring us? Is he a guy that's going to just say, if you can't block this guy and he makes tackles, you can't keep him out of the lineup?
Well, I tell you what he does very well. He's not only is he versatile, but he understands scheme very
Hopefully
well.
He's hostile.
And when he has a situation where he needs to just eat up blocks and let linebackers run left and right and scrape, he's really good at that. When you need him to penetrate and rush the passer, he can do that as well. So I think you add those 4 guys. So now we're up to 7, obviously, guys on that front 4. There's 7 guys that we're going to see consistently play. They do a great job with that. Historically, the Panthers have always generally been good in the front four in particular, and I don't expect that to change in 2017.
JT, could our 7 guys turn into a fearsome foursome?
Oh, without question. And the thing about it is I noticed a theme because I keep on hearing you two talk. I hear front 4, I hear front 7. And what you guys say, there is some credence to that. Panthers had 47 sacks last year. That's the second most in the NFL, and they have lost very little.
And they had a lot of injuries last year.
Garrett Allen did retire. He rode off into the snowy sunset.
He rode off in the snowy sunset, but he wasn't their best pass rusher. Mario Addison, 9.5 sacks. He's still there. Kawan Short, 6 sacks. He's still there. The only person that they lost with 5 or more sacks was Coney Ely.
Yep.
And the thing about it is that that's 5 sacks, and I think with Pep, the addition of Pep, like you said.
I think Pep can get you more than 5 sacks.
Right. They lost A.J. Klein.
I think Coney Ely's going to have more than 5 with New England. He's a good guy and good player, but, I mean, that's why New England wanted him.
They lost A.J. Klein to the Saints, but like I said, they have lost very little. And, a lot of times people talk about the secondary as well. Panthers had 17 interceptions last year. Only 3 teams, Kansas City, the Chargers, and Baltimore, had more interceptions. They had 18. So the thing about it is that a lot of those guys are young. Now they're seasoned, have a season under their belt. I definitely think that they can produce and take their game to the next
Thieves
level.
Alley, as they call it in the locker room. I see it on a weekly basis in the locker room. Thieves Alley, the home of the defensive backs. Captain Munnerlyn got it all started several years ago. He went off to play for the Vikings. Now he's back, kind of the mentor. He and Kirk Coleman, kind of the, I'm not going to call him senior statesman of the group, but you've got these 3 young DBs that they drafted last year. I like what these guys are doing defensively. And if you can cover guys, Reggie, you heard the coverage sack.
Oh, yeah.
I think if you get this front 4, front 7, you give them, if you're covering the guys and there's nobody open, this defense is really going to explode.
I agree. I think that's going to be a piece of the puzzle as well. But I think, listen, one of the things that we all sort of forget about are the intangible elements that certain players bring. And I think bringing a guy like Captain Munnerlyn back and bringing a guy like Peppers back with their experience, I think they're going to give this team, especially defensively, obviously TD is still here as well, but I think those 2 guys add to that sort of leadership that Peanut gave this team a couple of years ago as well. And I think anytime you have that kind of a veteran leadership at all 3 levels, because now they have it at all 3 levels to set the tone, I think it just makes your football team that much better.
Well, your thoughts are very much backed up by the fact that we have Luke Kuechly talking about the presence of people like Julius Peppers and Captain Munnerlyn.
When you look at Julius Peppers, he's a Hall of Famer. He played for a long time. He's Julius Peppers, and I think that's what he brings. Obviously, he can still play a lot, but he's Julius Peppers, and I think that's just kind of cool. I grew up watching him. I remember when he was in Chicago when he played there my rookie year. I'd never met him. I'd never seen him. I wanted to make sure that I walked by him, so to see how big he was, and so I got a chance to do that. Now he's on our team, which is really cool, and I got to play with Cap my first 2 years, and he's a fun guy to have out there. He's physical. He's got an edge to him, and then those 2 guys are gonna be good for us. I like having both back. I like having Captain back because I liked playing with him the first 2 years when I was here, and then obviously having Julius back just adds kind of that. I don't know. It's Julius Peppers, so I think it's kind of cool.
Now, Luke Kuechly makes very good points. When he was a rookie, first, second year, Captain Munnerlyn was here. He was the guy behind him. He heard him telling him, maybe helping him with positioning. And Julius Peppers, as he points out, is he's a Carolina Panther legend. I mean, he was a second player picked the year he came out. He played here for a long time. He's a North Carolina native. He played it for the Tar Heels. So he's much beloved by some. Some people can't forgive him for the fact that Carolina didn't want to pay him what the Bears did. But I think it's a very good point that you're bringing in a guy like Julius Peppers and Captain Munnerlyn. So maybe these are some very good additions that are going to help them, maybe the veterans that can help the younger guys bridge the gap.
Well, anytime I talk to young people that play the game of football, especially defensive backs, safeties, those types of players, one of the things I always tell them is you've got to be the vocal guy and get everybody where they're supposed to be. Obviously, Luke and TD do that already. But now you've got a guy in the defensive backfield, and Captain Munnerlyn, and this is no slight on Kirk Coleman because he did a good job last year, but a guy like Captain Munnerlyn can help those young corners and make sure they understand that they're seeing the same sight adjustments that he's seeing, and the same thing up front with a guy like Peppers.
Is Captain Munnerlyn going to have the hottest start of the year? Is he going to be the guy that jumps out when you're looking into week 3 or 4, when the Carolina Panthers may be undefeated possibly? Who's going to be the guy that people are going to be talking. Is it Christian McCaffrey? Is it going to be Captain Mullen? Is it going to be Greg Olsen? Is it going to be Cam Newton? Who's going to be the big star that's going to get the hottest start?
You know who I think it's going to be? The last person that you said, Cam Newton. And the reason why I say that,
You're going on a limb there.
I'm going out on a limb. And here's
He's
the
good,
reason,
I heard.
Just a little bit. And the reason why I say that is because you have to look at the schedule. I mean, they open up against the 49ers on the road, then they play Buffalo, then they play the Saints. That's not exactly like murder's row.
I think that's 3-0.
Right, and it's not like those three teams are known to having like really good defenses. Well, maybe Buffalo, but now Rex Ryan is gone. So I think that kind of sets up.
They're Carolina Panther North now.
Right. Oh, and by the way, week 4 at New England. So I think if that question stands true to where like which Panther will have the best start, looking at the schedule, Reg, you talked about how Cam's lost 15 pounds. Of course, he hears what people are saying. I'm going to say Cam Newton.
Well, you went out on a limb. I'm going to walk the plank.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right.
I live that every day.
I'm going Star Lotulele. And the reason why I say that is you've got a contract year.
Talkin friends.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You've got a push from behind him with 2 young defensive tackles that are younger. He's young, but a couple guys that are younger than him. Mm-hmm. And you've got the concept of because those guys are playing a little bit, he's going to get a little more rest. He'll be more fresh later in games. I expect, and oh, by the way, to your point, the schedule, the 49ers offensive line is atrocious.
I can tell you from a fact, from being
Buffalo and New Orleans. I mean, let's do the math here. I think Star's got a chance, especially that whole defensive line, really. But I think Star's got a chance to start the season off well.
Guys,
I wouldn't be surprised to see him with 4 or 5 sacks in the first 3 weeks.
In that locker room on a week-to-week basis, here in Coney Ely, here in Luke Kuechly, here in Thomas Davis, hearing these guys in the locker room every week, they always compliment Star. Now, I don't think anybody wants to mess with Star. He's one of these. The year he came out, he was generally considered one of the top guys out.
Utah.
And Star could be the guy. And there's also a concept called contract year.
Yeah, that's the first thing I mentioned.
He wants to get paid. He's going to have to put it up this year. So when we come back, we're going to have more Carolina Panther talk. Plus, we're still looking for Allen Iverson. Have you seen him? Give us a call right here on Talking About Sports. Welcome back to Talking About Sports. Kevin Casey, John Tobias, Reggie Walker, and the Big Three. This new basketball creation came to Charlotte. Our friend William Wilson went. He said he had a great time. A lot of big-name guys. I think Ricky Davis, a former Charlotte Hornets in the league.
Steven
Dr.
Jackson.
J's involved, so that's always a good thing.
Captain Jack.
Hal Harrington.
Yep, Steven Jackson, former Spur and former Bobcat. So we got to like Captain Jack. Allen Iverson's involved, and he's involved in a lot of controversy because he hasn't been seen lately. He's reportedly was at a casino. He's been kind of up and down and spotty in his attendance. He reportedly he lives near you, Reggie, in the neighborhood down on the corner or around the corner from you.
Watch it. Talking about a legend.
You know, he's from my home state of Virginia, so I like AI. He was a great football player, great quarterback.
Bethel
in high
High.
school. Great quarterback. Could have played college football. Maybe could have made the pros.
The one thing I would say about this is that when the Big Three started out, I commend Ice Cube, of course, with coming up with this concept. I think it was a great concept. And it started out with the ratings being good. And, you know, we talked about some players that we're familiar about, you know, Al Harrington, you know, Steven Jackson, like you said, you know, Ricky Davis, Deshaun Stevenson.
Reggie Evans.
Chauncey Billups. You know, we could
you can go down the list.
White
Chauncey
Chocolate.
Billups should be running a franchise right now.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother segment.
I'm just saying.
White Chocolate. But let's not get it twisted. Allen Iverson is easily the most popular player in the Big Three, without question. Not even a close second. And by him not showing up, Reg, to me, it's definitely a bad look to that particular organization.
Yeah, but it's also one of these things where we have to understand, and I think we get away from this sometimes. It's a novelty kind of concept for Allen, and Allen doesn't look at it as his primary focus. And anytime a guy like Allen, who is very much a free spirit and a free thinker, and is going to kind of do his thing, but if he gets bored with something, he's going to move on. And maybe that's the case with Allen. And you know, but like I said, Allen's always going to do what Allen wants to do. You know, whether that's talk about practice or not, Allen's going to do what he wants to do.
The thing about it is that I understand what you're saying. The only thing that I disagree is that if it's affecting other people, especially, you know, like a fledgling league, then I definitely think that it can pay dividends, but in a bad way to where it reflects a bad light on that particular league.
I mean, Joe Namath wasn't when he was in the AFL. wasn't going out and no-showing and leaving the Jets
Right.
high and dry when they're
Exactly.
trying to make a statement as a new league.
And Broadway Joe went hard. He would go hard, but he always showed up.
All right, now another notable, at least part-time resident. He grew up here in the Charlotte area. Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. He's trying to play some pro golf, and I wish I could play as good as Steph Curry. Tony Romo's played some pro golf. A lot of athletes. John Brody, a lot of Ben Roethlisberger. A lot of guys over the years. Jerry Rice among some of the guys that have played professional golf as a secondary sport. Now Steph Curry's trying to qualify or make a couple of tournaments. I say more power to you, Steph.
I'm going to make it short and to the point. We create our own limitations. So in other words, we can pretty much do whatever we want to do. Reggie, if you want to go and put the pads back on, you can do that. If you want to go ahead and get back in the wrestling ring, you can do that. Like I said,
There's got to be a lot of money involved.
I'm with you.
Cut the check, baby.
But like I said, we're the ones that create our own
Show me the
limitations.
money.
So if he wants to go out and play golf, let him do his thing.
I listen. Good for him. I'm not a 2 handicap, so hey, if you're a 2 handicap and you can play on the web.com tour, exemption or not, holla at your boy. Go ahead and do it, Steph. Enjoy yourself. Play your 72 holes and live your life, young fella.
Well, I mean, Kevin Tolbert, our producer, talks about just trying to give me pointers that day we were off and we were at the golf range. I don't like being lectured, even though everything he said was true. And he was backing it up on the range, and I wasn't. So,
well, my question is, are you going to be on the range at the PGA Championship here in Charlotte?
they won't let me. As a spectator, yes. But the thing is, talking about sports, we'll be there, and we'll have coverage from the PGA Championship from Quail Hollow. I've covered the Wells Fargo tournament. I've covered senior events at Piper Glen. So, I mean, this is a huge deal. It's only 4 of these tournaments a year. Now, the Wells Fargo is basically everybody, that and the Doral, or maybe called the 5th majors. Now we're going to have one of the 4 majors. The PGA is a big deal. It's going to bring in millions of dollars for the city and obviously the best golfers in the world. And maybe Jordan Spieth could maybe get the 4th, to get another major to his belt.
How about this stretch of a few years for Charlotte, huh? You get a major championship in golf. You get an all-star game that's coming here. There's discussion about adding another a professional sports franchise in soccer.
Mm-hmm. In baseball, maybe.
There's discussion. Baseball has come up. You've had obviously the ACC championship game now back, only gone 1 year hiatus for those reasons.
NCAA tournament
thank you,
coming
Charlotte
back.
City
NCAA
Council.
tournament. So you start looking at the city of Charlotte, and you start to realize this is
And there's a road,
rapidly becoming a sports town.
Next year there'll be a road course in the Chase in NASCAR.
Oh,
just so you
okay.
know. We've got a
Ooh.
road course in the Chase right here at the.
Well, just
at
put them
Star
on
Motor
485 because that thing's like a NASCAR race anyway. People don't slow down out there.
Hopefully talking about sports.
Speedway. Not in my car. I don't even make the speed limit in my car. It's so old. I got to crank it up. It's Model T. Not only that, but Adrian Beltre's been in the news. Hit his 3,000th hit, and it's kind of acting like what. Maybe tongue-in-cheek, like he's Marshawn Lynch. I didn't see any Skittles out there, but what was that all about?
Well, I think he was just having a little fun with it. He was acting like he didn't want to talk about getting his 3,000th hit and what it meant, yada, yada, yada. But I like that he did it in good fun. Here's the most interesting thing to me when you think about a guy like Adrian Beltre right now in his basically 20th parts. This is a piece of his 20th Major League season.
Mm-hmm.
He's only had one season, JT. One with 200 hits.
That's a good stat.
One season with 200 hits. So that tells you now he's got multiple seasons
of 199.
He's got a whole lot of seasons between 150 and 190.
Right.
So that tells you this guy can consistently hit the baseball. He's a home run hitter as well. He's hit the ball out of the ballpark plenty of times as well. Over 450 in his career. So when you look at what this guy has done historically, he's a pretty good glove over at third base. We may be looking at a guy that's probably going to find his way in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. 3,000 hits is kind of like what used to be 500 home runs or 300 wins as a starter. And we're talking baseball, and we can't talk baseball without thank you, Taylor.
Oh, here comes some food. We're getting ready to talk food, too.
Our track
Food
star
is
from
coming
Howard
shortly.
University, our server, Taylor. We'd like to do a segment on that, but Mike Pacheco talking about baseball. We're talking about sports. We can't talk baseball without Mike. He's on assignment. Let's hear Mike Pacheco's baseball update.
Hey guys, out on assignment here for ADSN. Sorry I can't be with you at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. I know you guys are having a great time right now. But boy, do we have a lot to talk about. And this is the busy time of the year with Panthers and the PGA Championships coming up next week. But you know what? There's still plenty to talk about in the world of baseball. We'll get into some Knights talk in a minute here. But we're going to go down east and talk about the Carolina Mudcats because Monte Harrison, he landed on SportsCenter's top 10 this week with a fantastic catch. He ran faster than Kevin Casey could run in a year to get a baseball, and it was a spectacular catch and well-deserving for a guy that was a second-round pick by the Brewers in 2014. And, oh, by the way, coming into this season, number 14 prospect in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. And we know what a good year Milwaukee's having. Now, speaking of minor leagues, the Charlotte Knights, still plenty to talk about with the Knights with 1 month to go in the regular season. How about congratulations to Nicky Delmonico, the Knights' third baseman and outfielder, getting his first call up to the big leagues. And that's really what it's all about for the Charlotte Knights. They're here not just to win games. That's a big part of it. But maybe the bigger part is the developmental side, and that's getting guys up to the big leagues. And we see Yohan Moncada getting called up over a week and a half ago. Now, a couple guys to keep an eye on for the rest of the year. Ronaldo Lopez, he's been pitching great for the Knights. Even though the win-loss record might not be exactly where he wants it to be, he's been giving the Knights a lot of innings, and he's among the leaders in strikeouts. Here's another guy to keep an eye out for, Jason Bourgeois. If you're a longtime Knights follower, you remember Jason from the 07-08 season. Of course, he's been with the Knights for the last 2 years, so he's now in his second stint. He has been around long enough that now he is on the doorstep of 400 career hits with the Charlotte Knights. Only two other players, Jordan Danks with 449 hits, and number 2 is Joe Borchert on that list with 439. So he's about to enter very elite company with the Charlotte Knights. And you want to talk about elite company, how about what's going on in training camp right now for the Carolina Panthers? Of course, the big story is Christian McCaffrey. I can't wait to see him in the first preseason game. You know, obviously, training camp is one of those things, and I think Reggie would agree with this. You know, there's a lot you can glean from training camp, but there's also a lot you have to wait for the regular games to come out. And that's what we're going to see, of course, with Christian McCaffrey. But I'm very excited for him. And I also want to see what Cam Newton is going to be able to do with that throwing arm. I know he started off throwing really well. He's had some time off recently. So it'll be interesting to see how well he gets back to throwing. Now, remember, this is not an easy surgery that he's come back from. And so we're interested to see what his health is like. And, of course, the defensive side of the ball, I can't wait to see Julius Peppers. So I'm going to send it back to you guys. Put the nachos down and get back to work.
Thanks, Mike. And Mike Pacheco not only calls baseball games on Charlotte for the Charlotte Knights, he's also co-hosts the Carolina Panthers post-game radio show. So Mike's
a busy guy this time of year.
He's a busy guy, has a lot of jobs, and doesn't think about us when he's getting them.
He's on his Kevin Gates. He got 6 jobs. He don't get tired.
Yeah, that's a good point. Chico definitely does a good job with what he does. So we've talked some baseball. We're still looking for Allen Iverson. Steph Curry is trying to get loose on the golf course. Hopefully doesn't listen to Kevin Tolbert on the driving range or me. But we've got lots coming up. More Carolina Panther talk. The Hall of Fame. We got to talk about the NFL Hall of Fame. Who's in, who's out, and who should be in there. Well, that's more right here on Talking About Sports.
Today we partner with Academy Sports and the Carolina Panthers to be able to put on this event for these kids. It's a back-to-school event. They were able to come in and spend $150 on anything that they wanted in the store. And I think it's truly a jump start for the school year for these kids and something that I hope they always remember. And I know for these kids, this is going to mean a world of difference for them. And hopefully, like I said, it's going to jumpstart their school year and just being able to come down here to South Carolina, understanding as a Carolina Panther, we receive support from both North and South Carolina. It's definitely important for me to be able to give back to South Carolina, and with us being so close, it was a no-brainer for me to be able to do this event, especially with this being my wife's hometown. Knowing, like I said, with our foundation, we work in Charlotte, we work in Georgia, and we work in South Carolina as well. And Greenville is definitely a special place for her. It's a special place for me, and we just want to give back as much as we possibly can. And being able to come out and just spend a little time doing this event today and sharing with these kids and helping them shop. Always have a new experience. You always have a different smile, a different kid that you're reaching and impacting. And hopefully for me, these kids, like I said, will have a great school year.
All right, we just heard Thomas Davis, and I have covered the Carolina Panthers for many years. not many guys that I've been around that have universal respect, not just in the locker room, but in the league. And then this community. Thomas Davis is one of those guys. We saw how he went to Academy Sports. He's giving back to kids. And he's not one of these guys that show up 5 minutes before the cameras show up and he just does a few things for photo ops.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anyone that tops Thomas Davis since the Panthers' existence of over 20 years.
I had the pleasure of working the
He worked on your
football
technique,
camp,
Kenny?
the football camp that Thomas Davis did in 2016, and he was out there all day, both days. The rule is not to ask for autographs. He signed a whole bunch of them anyway, and he was very gracious in people and what they were willing to do for those kids. And he spent a lot of time instructing those kids and teaching them how to play football better, and be better people.
Now, who could be the next Thomas Davis on the field? Who are some of the top undrafted free agents? A guy that in many publications are looking to is Ben Boulware out of Clemson. Let's hear from Luke Kuechly on what Ben Boulware brings to the table.
He asks good questions, and I remember when I first got here, I asked Beast and Thomas, and Jordan Sen was another linebacker that when I first got here, I asked those guys a million questions on the field, off the field, about how to play this coverage, how to fit the run this way, and he asks, and now Ben's kind of the same way. He asks good questions, he asks smart questions, he asks questions that let you know that he's thinking and understanding and processing what's going on, and I think he's smart. I think he really does a good job understanding the defense, and I think his time to shine is when the pads go on, because some guys are athletes and some guys are football players, and some guys, I think he's a football player, and he's better at when the pads are on and it's a live period and you're hitting and you're running, you're getting off blocks. I think that's his game. So I think he's going to have a good opportunity here in the next few weeks to kind of show what he's got.
All right, Ben Boulware, we've seen him. I've talked to him in the locker room after last year's game at NC State. I've seen him at the ACC in bigger games. Ben Boulware's a class guy. Number one, he's a good guy, and he also plays a tough position. Reggie playing linebacker, quarterback of the defense. He's the guy taking in the signals from Brent Venables on the Clemson sideline. So I think Ben Boulware brings a lot of the intangibles. Maybe he could be an A.J. Klein and kind of work his way into things. Thomas Davis is getting up there in years. Maybe Shaq Thompson kind of moves into more of an integral role, and Boulware becomes like a guy down the line that could be a good run defender and really emerges in the defensive rotation.
Let me say something really quick.
Absolutely.
And the thing about it is, I know you normally ask the questions, but I have to flip it on you, and especially Reg.
You always try to hit me with stuff below the belt.
Right.
All right, Busta Rhymes, Flipmo's the greatest.
There you go. Flip Star. Don't forget about him too. Yeah, and Rod Digger. But the thing about it is that it's really all about the eye test. What I don't understand, Red, is that Ben Boulware was arguably the best middle linebacker in college ball.
Yes.
Well, college football last year.
Yes.
Even in the big games, Ben Boulware put in work.
Yes.
And what I don't understand is, how is it that a guy that was considered one of the best, if not the best middle linebacker, by the way, on the national championship team,
here we go.
not even get drafted?
I love you, Taylor.
See, this is how you get distracted
my
about
dear.
talking
Thank
about
you.
Ben
Thank you.
Boulware. Thank you so much. But help me understand, because, a lot of people talk about the eye test. How is it that he did
Taylor,
not
what's your
get
last name?
drafted?
I'm going to tell you. It's really simple.
Taylor, our server here, ran track at Howard, ran the 800. Only injuries derailed an Olympic career, and brought my favorite in front of me.
Got to get that
So there
pretzel.
you
I
go.
see.
So I love Taylor.
She knows our hearts over here, doesn't
There
she?
you go.
So-
She knows our hearts. She got the pretzel over there.
Oh, yeah.
We got the beef
That's
nachos
you.
this week.
That's you.
And then all the way down here on the end, we got the
That's what I
buffalo
knock out.
blue cheese
Who had JT? Did you ask
chips.
for those?
So we're eating
Yo,
good.
yeah.
So
So you said the nachos
We
are
just need to
mine.
do a switcher. Yeah, that's you.
So I'm
All
gonna
right,
take
all
the nachos.
All right.
And we'll give you the buffalo blue cheese.
for a player to be named later.
For-
For
yes.
Ben Boulware and a player to be named
Two
later.
prospects.
No, I'm with you. By
Send
the
them
way,
to the Charlotte Knights. and we'll be good
Continuity,
to go.
guys. That's what we do.
we're all about the team. We're all about the team.
Gotta
I'm
work
with
it
you,
out.
by the way, with Ben Boulware. I thought this guy should have been drafted, number one. And was it his 40 time? Or
No.
what was it?
Well,
I don't
it was.
get that.
Here's what I'll tell you, and I'll say this, and I got to be delicate when I say this, but I mean what I say. NFL scouts and personnel people are the most particular about falling in love or out of love with a player based on measurables and not just watching tape. Guys are undersized, or they can't be drafted because he's not this tall, or he doesn't run this fast, or he didn't lift 225 this many times. Who cares? Watch the tape. If the guy jumps out on you
block and tackle
on tape, you probably need to draft him. And if you don't believe me, ask Jimmy Johnson, because he did it with the Dallas Cowboys and won a lot of championships with 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, because those are guys that took over games and they jumped off the tape. Stop worrying about measurables. That's why he didn't get drafted, in my opinion.
Maybe a Hall of Famer, at least special teamer. We know, at least I think, guys with Carolina have potential of being in the Hall of Fame. Maybe a Greg Olson, a Thomas Davis, a Luke Kuechly if he stays injury-free. Julius Peppers, possibly. Some names that are on the list this year are Kenny Easley, the former Seahawks safety from Virginia. Jason Taylor, formerly of the Dolphins, played for the Redskins. Morton Anderson, the kicker. Terrell Davis. Short career derailed by injuries. LaDainian Tomlinson, also a great runner. Jerry Jones, maybe one of the smartest businessmen that's ever come through the National Football League. Kurt Warner won a Super Bowl with the Rams. And guys, I have to say this because not just a friend of mine, but again, a name you didn't see.
Yeah, I don't see any wide receivers on it.
Besides that, you don't see Roman Gabriel, who played at NC State. And you look talking about consider the era, 60s, 70s. The game, the rules didn't favor quarterbacks. It was a defensive era with players like that. But think about this. He was an all-time passing leader with nearly 30,000 yards. That's more yards. You'd appreciate this, JT.
Okay.
More passing yards than Hall of Famers Len Dawson, Terry Bradshaw, Ken Stabler, Joe Namath, George Blanda, Bobby Lane, Bob Greasy, Bart Starr, Norm Van Brocklin, Otto Graham, Roger Staubach, and Sammy Baugh. More touchdowns than all those guys. Roman Gabriel not in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Why isn't he in then?
I'd like to know. So we have a very good list of current players going in, and one name that should be in, and hopefully will get in sooner rather than later.
Well, it sounds like that Roman Gabriel has every reason to be salty,
but he isn't. But the Midland Valley Chamber of Commerce Celebrity Golf Tournament is in Aiken, South Carolina, September 9th and 10th. So Reggie and I are going to be there. William Wilson will be there in attendance. JT, we got to get you in. You keep talking good about Gabe, we'll get you in there next year.
He's looking at you saying, wrap it up.
We're going to a break. This is Talking About Sports.
No, I thought you said, I'm sorry. I thought you said he said wrap it up. And I thought.
Welcome back to the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Kevin Casey, John Tobias, and Reggie Walker. And guys, we've, as you've seen over the episodes, we've covered pro fighting, whether it be boxing or MMA. Christy Martin, JT, you pointed out she was a very notable fighter, was on a Mike Tyson undercard, is that correct?
Coal miner's daughter.
Yeah. And her cards are drawing a sold-out crowd this past weekend at NODA. So, and she made the media rounds here and around the Queen City.
We are here this morning to go up to a Beasley radio station, Power 98, and just talk about boxing and how we plan on changing how people view boxing in Charlotte.
Okay. Come on in. You must be walking. This is Chris.
Yes.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm standing there watching you out the window to tell you where to come on across. Come here then to go to dinner. Like this, up here.
Right hand. Yeah, right hand.
You're right-handed.
Yes.
Stand with your right foot like you're gonna be boxing me. You're gonna
Right foot back. Right foot
put
back.
your right.
Like
Yeah.
You see the hands be? Why the hands be real, baby? The hands be real. We got a difference maker inside the madhouse.
Yeah.
A female boxer.
Yes, by the name of Miss Christy Martin.
Excited about being here.
World champ. Former world champ.
We don't pay one-hitter quitters. If you're not going to fight, you're not going to get paid. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing all good matchups. We have 7 fights lined up for Saturday night at Center Stage, headed by Levante Early. This is going to be a great night of boxing. When people walk out, this will be our second sellout show. when people walk out, they're already asking when's the next one going to be, because it was good fights. We actually went to the fire department yesterday and added 50 extra tickets just so we can get 50 more people in there. So at this point, we have about 35 left of those 50 tickets that were added yesterday. The show is going to be awesome. Center stage, Noda, right around all the breweries. So as soon as the show's over, you can go out and have a few brews.
What really hooked me, what was the last straw, is when I really discovered in myself how much of an art form this is. You know what I mean? And that's what really was, just because I'm like a creative. So that was really what was like, okay, now we got to do this.
Forum Fitness, give Forum Fitness a call at the number for Forum Fitness is.
It can call. They can actually reach me directly at 516-658-3675.
I think the greatest thing we achieved was just really showing people that we're legitimate. We are for real. We want to come here to Charlotte to put on good fights. And it was awesome that they're speaking out, saying they were at the fight before and how great the fight was. So it's just going to build. It's just going to help us build the crowd. It's going to help build the interest in what Pink Promotions is trying to bring to Charlotte.
Okay, now Christy Martin bringing excitement to the area with Pink Productions. You'll notice all her fighters wear pink boxing gloves, and we're going to have a lot from her fight card on AnotherDamnSportsNetwork.com, our main event over the weekend. So we're going to have a lot of pro fighting. And
boxing's been down for like the past several years, and the thing about it is, though,
out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, but Christy Martin, I know what she's doing now, but there was a time when she was very prominent as a fighter. She fought Layla Ali, she fought Holly Holm, who ended up knocking out Ronda Rousey a couple of years ago, and now she seems like she's really doing big things as a promoter. But I say that to say this. I think that now that boxing is starting to make a comeback, Reg, because, you have the Mayweather-McGregor fight on August 26th. You have the Canelo Triple G fight. It seems like the boxing is starting to come back again.
Guys, final thoughts as we go into the weekend and next week?
It's all about the Panthers right now. They have the preseason game August 9th against the Houston Texans. I can't wait.
We haven't really talked much about college football today. But listen, the pads are popping. Everybody's in camp. It's almost go time, man. I can't wait. We're less than a month away from some real live action regular season football. With all due respect to the preseason for the NFL, I'd rather watch a college game than an NFL preseason game, but that's just me.
Well, for Reggie Walker, John Tobias, for Kevin Tolbert, I'm Kevin Casey saying so long from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill right here on Talking About Sports on ADSN.